Hi, I'm Bailey Yoder, and I'm the curator of football heritage for the Paul Brown Museum at the Massillon Museum. And today I'm going to be talking about one of the current exhibitions in the museum, Play Like a Girl, Massillon Women's Tiger Teams from Gym Class to Title IX. Women have long been involved in athletic activities, whether leisurely or competitively. Internationally, women were competing in Wimbledon by 1884 and in 5 different events in the 1900 Olympics. My favorite sport in the 19th century is called pedestrianism, and today it's considered competitive speed walking. And there were 2 really awesome women who were involved in pedestrianism in the 1850s. One was Emma Sharp. She was the first woman to complete the notorious 1,000 miles in 1,000 hours Barclay Match Walk in 1864. Instead of wearing her traditional skirt and blouse like most women, actually all women wore in the 1800s, she wore a red and black checkered men's suit. And at one point she had to carry a pistol with her for protection from men who wished her not to finish the race. And at one point she also had armed guards so she would be able to finish. The other woman, Ada Anderson, was considered the champion lady walker of the world during the second half of the 19th century. She trained with British champion race walker William Gale to beat the Barclay Match Walk that Emma Sharp had competed in, with a record of 1,250 miles in 1,000 half hours. So first, let's talk about the difference between leisure activities and competitive sports. Leisure activities promote pleasure, relaxation, and provide emotional satisfaction, and can be an important form of socialization. They can be in the form of hobbies such as cycling, swimming, fishing, croquet, boating, tennis, and golf. Many women in Massillon could readily participate in these activities, but had to do so recreationally because of societal norms that dictated that only men could participate in competitive sports. Competitive sports, on the other hand, are supervised, high-performance activities with the goal of winning titles or prizes. Most are played at the high school, college, and professional level, and are organized into divisions or leagues in which individuals or specific teams are assigned to play each other in tournaments. Women were often excluded in participating in competitive sports like football, basketball, track, soccer, and baseball well into the 20th century. Although women did compete in Wimbledon in 1884 and in the Olympics by 1900, they were in the minority by far. Women faced certain discrimination and exclusion from those first Olympics, with French aristocrat Baron Pierre de Coubertin saying that the games were created for, quote, the solemn and periodic exaltation of male athleticism with female applause as reward. A great example was a local women's amateur softball club in the late 1940s called Massillon Canton Merchants. Local newspapers called them an unholy alliance because the women were from the rivalry cities, but they formed a solid team, defeating North Canton Hoover, the Akron K Styles, the Warren Voima Athletic Club, and only losing to the Cleveland Metropolitan League champs, the Rangers. This team in 1949 consisted of Eleanor Kiley, Eileen Dillon, Marilyn Smith, Mary Jane DeBach, Gloria Fern, Avis Harper, Phil Stuchel, Dolly Bibbich, Elaine Stuchel, Lois Van Orman, Bim Klaus, who was the manager, Barney Klaus, Kay Klaus, Norma Smith, and Jackie Teeple. These teams in the 1940s, like the softball teams, were most likely formed because of the popularity of the National Women's Baseball Association, the All-American Girls Professional Baseball League that most of you have probably seen in a league of their own, which gained traction during World War II and continued into the 1950s. Cycling, swimming, fishing, croquet, boating, tennis, and golf are some of the many recreational sports women had access to in the late 1800s. Participation in leisurely activities remained a popular pastime among mainly white women of higher social status in Massillon. They formed clubs around these activities to include women of all ages, and many of these organizations held a roster of those in high society because they could afford the fees associated with the exclusive membership and for the costumes required for the activity. For example, tennis required a specific bodice and skirt that allowed for free movement while still emphasizing that feminine figure. The rise in popularity of bloomers in the 1850s gave women more freedom to play sports like basketball or cycling while still remaining fashionable. Bloomers are similar looking to the balloon pants that were worn by MC Hammer in the 1980s. They were worn under the skirt so a woman could remain decent while participating in high performance activities. Pictured here, the Massillon Girls Tennis Club They were formed about 1890, and they included Massillon High students Grace Ryder, Mae Williams, Ella Yost, Ruth Dangler, Margaret Lula Reed, Helen Nell Williams, Eva Albrecht, Mae D. White, Clara Burton, and Stella Falk. All of these women were members of wealthy families here in Massillon, and they all graduated between 1890 and 1894, so they were a really close-knit group of women, and they decided to form their own club to get together. The opening of the Massillon Athletic Club in 1905 over on North Street made access to leisure and other activities more readily available to the working class due to reduced or free memberships and the rise in popularity of exercise. Despite this new avenue for broader participation, discrimination and legalized racial segregation during the Jim Crow era prevented people of color from being welcomed in many athletic clubs. By the 1920s, societal norm and popular opinion that it was improper for women to participate in any sport, leisurely or competitively, took over. Unfortunately, women were looked down on for competing in sports, considering that they thought that it was only a men's activity, and it was, just very popular opinion today, which is very unpopular. When basketball was introduced in Massillon at the high school in 1901, it was a fairly new sport, making strides at Springfield College in Massachusetts. In Massillon, it actually gained popularity with the girls first, to which the class of 1905 formed their own team and scheduled games with the other classes. In their senior year, the junior boys finally caught up with them and created a team to challenge the girls. They won by a very slim margin, and fearing defeat, they disbanded their team and didn't have another one for years. Of course, at this time, very few boys made it past the 8th grade due to the need to get a job to help support the family, so that could be a reason why the boys didn't have a lot of basketball teams in the early days, but we'll just say that the girls were better. By the time the class of 1905 graduated, there were senior, junior, and sophomore teams with nearly 30 girls participating. The senior class of 1905, which included these 10 women: Sadie Nelson, Alma Deagle, Minnie Eberly, Elizabeth Eulendorf, Gwendolyn Packer, Bessie Spooler, Elmira Buttermore, Verma Skeels, Faye Arthur, and Lucille Schrock, would create a tradition in Massillon that would last for over 30 years. Massillon Museum is actually in possession of Bessie Spooler's basketball costume, which is a 4-piece denim cotton blend consisting of your bloomers, your overskirt, your midi blouse, and a dickie, and it's pictured here in one of the photographs. The junior class listed in the yearbook consisted of Bessie Yost, Orva Paul, Florence Von Cannell, Mae List, Gwendolyn Benedict, Marcia Pitzker, Laura Kessler, and Anna Moody. And the sophomore class was Ethel Morgan, Irene Schwarm, Hattie Davis, Esther Packer, Lucille Johns, Helen Spooler, Bessie Bowe, Anna Darr, and Nellie Lepper. Over the next decade, girls basketball remained a popular activity in the high school, with some classes even competing interscholastically with other teams in Ohio. In 1907, the girls basketball team competed against a couple teams from the Canton YWCA. And in 1912, there was a full schedule of 7 games in which the girls played Salem, Alliance, Youngstown, and Barberton. Participation in sports, particularly basketball at the high school, declined with the addition of physical education classes in the late 1910s, which coincided with the building of the Massillon Athletic Club and also the new Washington High School. The first documented girls' physical education class was in 1917, where girls were able to participate in various activities to stay active. Basketball, volleyball, folk dancing, and calisthenics, which is a form of strength-building exercise that requires no equipment, were the most popular activities. These first gym classes were extracurricular, but as popularity in exercise grew, the class became mandatory for all students in their first year of school. Another short-lived activity that women participated in at the high school was called captain ball. It was a sport that was participated just for a couple years. It was a version of basketball in which there were teams of 10, and the girls had to pass the ball back and forth to each other, and to get points, they had to pass it to their designated captain on the team. The yearbooks describe it as being a very active and fun sport for the girls to participate in. And the girls having a lot of fun. So these early gym classes were defined by more than just the athletic activities. Many social events occurred in the gymnasium, including those put on by the girls' gym class at Washington High. In this photograph that I have here of 1917 Washington High party gym, one of the girls in the second row is portrayed in blackface. I want to point this out because gym class for girls wasn't just these athletic activities. They were society parties and social events. So blackface was introduced in the mid-1800s, with white men painting their faces with burnt cork or shoe polish and wearing torn or tattered clothing to depict characters that perpetuated negative and racist stereotypes for African Americans and other people of color. This racist and discriminatory form of entertainment was used to extend the reaches of the Jim Crow era legislation that was unfortunately prevalent in other forms of media like postcards, games, toys, and decorative objects. So even blackface in 1917 at the high school was not something that was overlooked. It was still participated in heavily. Many other extracurricular programs were formed for the girls at the high school in place of competitive sports through the 1930s and 40s, including a ring and tumbling club and a girls' athletic association. There was also the continuation of class basketball teams at both the junior high schools and at Washington High, though the game was cut to a half-court version. Some of these teams were very good, and they usually held tournaments against each other. One great example is the Amazons that formed at Longfellow Junior High, and they were champions during the 1946 and 1947 school year. In the photo that I have here, it's the 1941 team of Helen Sr., Carol Snyder, Norma Ackley, who was captain that year, Susan Wyrick, Phyllis Fox, Clara Underhill, Jane Pocock, Ruth Seacrest, Paula Putnam, Carolyn Friedrich, and Eleanor Limbach, who was the coach. Now a sport near and dear to my heart, cheerleading. This was an especially popular pastime, and it actually began as a men's-only activity. With the rise in popularity of the football team, especially in the 1930s Paul Brown era, you start to get a lot more fanfare on the sidelines, and so the rise in popularity of cheerleading began. So you start to see maybe 3 or 4 guys on the sidelines. And in 1935, the first women joined the squad. It was Jean McLean. 1938, with the introduction of the Tiger Swing Band, you have the first Obi real tiger skin mascot. You start to get really up and exciting cheerleading squads. So in 1938, you've got a squad consisting of 4 people: Margaret Peg Bussey, Roger McIntosh, Alvin Engelhardt, and Ardella Loop. And then in the pictures that I have here, we have Margaret standing on the shoulders of Roger McIntosh, and then Margaret deciding to take a ride on Obi's back on the sidelines during a pause in game. This squad particularly was active at all football games, leading fans in cheers and rallies for the Tigers. Through the years, you start to see more and more women being involved on the squad, less participation from the men, although of course in the 40s you still have to have your male coach or captain for the squad to kind of oversee everything to make sure that the women aren't going a little too crazy. Now I want to talk about Eva Schorb-Weiskopf. She was the first woman to letter in a varsity sport at Massillon High School. She was born here in Massillon on February 26, 1918. She grew up watching her father play golf, and at the age of 14 decided to give the sport a try. She became an accomplished golfer here at Washington High School, and again was the first woman to letter in a varsity sport at Massillon High School in 1935. She competed in a variety of Stark County amateur golf tournaments where she won the Akron Women's District title and the Stark County Women's Championship twice. After graduation from Massillon, she attended the College of Worcester, where she also competed on the men's team in 1938 until the administration decided that golf was not an appropriate activity for women to participate. She did continue to play golf for over 60 years and was eventually inducted into the Worcester College Hall of Fame in 1995, the Stark County Amateur Golf Hall of Fame in 2011, and after being rediscovered at a garage sale several years ago, was finally inducted into the Massillon Wall of Champions in 2018. The College of Worcester also holds an annual invitational in her name with the women's golf team, where they invite several different colleges and schools to participate, and they've also invited family before. Another one of my favorite people, she was the first woman to be inducted onto the Massillon Wall of Champions. This is Kelly Bodiford Banks. She's a Washington High School graduate of 1988. She lettered in both basketball and track and threw shot put and discus for Massillon from 1984 to 1988, placing third overall at the state track meet in 1985 and the Ohio State champion for girls track shot put in 1987. Kelly was voted All-American in discus and threw shot put and discus at the University of Virginia. She was the first woman inducted into the Massillon Wall of Champions in 1996. She's also got a scholarship fund through the Mount Calvary Baptist Church that was founded in 1995 to assist students with financial need based on academics and athletic ability, and she remains active with the Washington High School Alumni Association today. After the passing of the Title IX sex discrimination civil rights law in 1972, the Ohio High School Athletic Association reevaluated all high school sports programs, including the girls' interscholastic activities. For the first time in over 50 years, women were eligible to participate in all competitive athletic sports. Soon after the passage of Title IX, the first official girls' athletic teams emerged, and by 1981, you have synchronized and competitive swimming, which was founded in 1972, basketball, volleyball, and tennis by 1974, track and gymnastics by 1975, and fast-pitch softball by 1980. And all of these were available for girls to participate. After about 20 more years, soccer would emerge as the newest sports craze at the high school for both boys and girls. And in 2016, the first official girls golf program was founded at the high school. Don't forget, a visit to your Massillon Museum is always free. You can see the full exhibit at the Paul Brown Museum here at the Massillon Museum at 121 Lincoln Way East. You can also reach me if you have any questions pertaining to football or women in sports at 330-833-4061, extension 116, or at my email, byoder@massillonmuseum.org. Thank you so much.
Sharing a big family moment, working hard from home, relaxing with a friend. Welcome to life, engaged, where reliable internet has never been more important. MCTV extends your family's reach with consistent speeds and whole home Wi-Fi, making life at home engaged, no matter what's thrown your way. MCTV, we go the extra smile.